Hey, this is Notser, and we're in the Tier 8 Soviet destroyer, Ognevoi, on the map Haven. Build is on the screen. If you're not familiar with Ognevoi, it only has 4 guns, but it also has torpedo range, which is a new development for the Soviet DD branch. This is the alternative branch, and your basic goal is to sort of play both sides. You want to use the high gun velocity when you can, but you also want to make use of the torpedo systems every single cooldown, because you're wasting potential if you don't. Now, I decided to head forward, and of course, we run smack into literally the worst thing I could ever see. An enemy gearing. This is a tier 10 match, and I know many of you probably... Oh, it's a tier 8 ship. Oh, are you playing in a mostly tier 9 and tier 10 match? Yes I am. Of course I am. Everyone is. So, what I do... Pop my smoke immediately. He has a gun advantage. He has an every advantage. And sent my torpedoes directly at the last position he was located at. Now, a friendly is able to spot the enemy, and I recognize that it looks like he's not going to run into my torpedoes at all. Unless he overreacts, of course. Which is... it's always on the table, and... it did work out. That gearing would have easily avoided all of those torpedoes, but it ended up being the worst possible thing. He sailed directly into one, took a torpedo, and died. And now the flank is ours. So, as a Soviet DD, what should you look to do? Well, you could openly fire. However, I feel like rank, clan, random... everyone is just better at firing at a target that's about 10 or 12 kilometers away, regardless of its size. So the better strategy is to sit on the flank, use my concealment, and to punish the stagnant gameplay that has so invaded every pore of games. I am just so shocked by the level of patience, in action that I just see on display every single game. So, of course, these battleships are going to set up and they're going to try and punish my friendly battleship. And I'm going to come over to this flank, use the gearing smoke, get inside of my torpedo range, which conveniently both sets are ready. Get inside my torpedo range, and you know what? I'm just going to send. I could send anywhere. They're all going to be sort of slow and stationary. So I just want to make sure that I can reward every single possible target with a bunch of torpedoes. And we'll see what happens. So far, this game could, anything can happen. We could have the enemy battleships who, for any number of reasons, they could decide to move all in unison, concert, towards whatever, and the torpedoes would go harmlessly. But we all know, and I've said this before, when you are located near another battleship that's sort of stationary, you sort of drop your guard. You're not as aware of the danger because you figure, oh, someone else is going to be doing that. I just have to focus on doing damage. Well, the problem is that if everyone has that thought process, nobody is actually watching your back. Or your back, or your back, or anyone else's back. No backs have been watched. So, a lot of free damage on a bunch of broadside battleships. It might cause them to make another mistake and sail a little bit more forward. My torpedoes are almost back up, so I figure, I can set up in my smoke. Friendlies are spotting the battleships, which is a rarity, I must say. At this point, not really. Enemy Yamato, I want to get a fire on this guy. I know he's taken a torpedo, and he's still taking a torpedo, but I always like to just add a little bit more insult in the form of another dot, and another dot on top of another dot, and it gets to a point where floods and fires, you've called it, it's over. Enemy Montana, there's nobody sitting on my flank. The real answer to this is there's nothing I can do to the person who's on my flank. I have no DD support, no radar, no nothing. I'm really just hoping that he misses his torpedoes. Now, the first torpedo that was sent at his forward stationary position, absolutely going to miss. But the next torpedo send, that's a different story. Both of these ships are coming together nicely, and it looks like I'm going to have 3, maybe 4 torpedo hits easily. I mean, it's great the way all these ships have just sailed basically into my torpedoes. So we're going to get 1 on the Alabama. Of course, it doesn't cause a flood. We get 2 on the Montana. They do cause a flood. And that flood shouldn't stick. Yeah, it doesn't. Because it doesn't stick, I decide, okay, with the last little bit of time left, I'm going to try and get a dot in the form of fire. It will stick for at least 45 seconds to a minute. But notice, I'm not openly firing. I'm still taking advantage of this flank. And boy, this flank is completely open for me to punish. And you feel so helpless. As a battleship, some of you might be asking, what do I do in this situation? Well, you try and time it to minimal enemy fire, but you have to get off the flank. You have to. You can't just stay stationary, bow on, tanking battleship. Oh, that guy got so lucky. But you can't stay stationary. And I think because of his fortune, he decided to move forward. And I moved a little bit aggressively towards his position, knowing that, if I could get his attention, maybe he could slow down, maybe turn into torpedoes. But yeah, battleships, if you're on a flank and you have no DD support, and there's just a DD that can easily send torpedoes on cooldown, don't let him do that. That's a really bad thing. You need to give ground. You need to force him to chase. Maybe on a different flank you can have more success. Clearly, this was the worst strategy of the bunch. Just stay bow on and take multiple torpedoes. He engages me with his guns. No big deal. I'll use my smoke. I've got health to burn. His friendly ran forward and died, and just like that, the game is pretty much over. And it's all because that Gearing played overly aggressive and allowed himself to get torpedoed. If the Gearing is still alive, I can't do this at all. I can't do any of this, and the flank is safe. Once that Gearing fell, though, the battleships had to recognize that there was nothing they could do with a free enemy DD operating on his own who could send torpedoes left, right, and center. Now, it's not as big of a deal against a Soviet DD that doesn't have torpedo systems. But the moment you introduce torpedoes into the mix, that stationary bow tanking is gone. That is the direct counter, and trying to do that is, maybe a form of insanity. You're doing something even though you know it's not going to work. So you're hoping for a different outcome, which is not going to happen. And friendlies take out the enemy. Only 1 ship left. We already have 130,000 damage, and yeah. It felt really good to sit on the flank and torpedo it constantly. And that was my goal with the Ognevoi. I don't want to get in a gun situation. A gunfight is less than ideal. Clearly, I only have 4 guns. I can do a little bit of free damage, but not much. The real prize of this whole thing is the fact that I was able to send torpedoes on cooldown, undetected, at stationary targets. If you're ever in a situation where you get that, you better exploit the hell out of that. Because it doesn't happen that often. Some people are like, oh, in my Soviet DD down the line, they're like, hey, Notser, what do you think of the Ognevoi? Well, I think it has limitations, obviously. But it's really a hybrid. And try and take advantage of the hybrid. So teammates take out the final target before I get over to the capture point. It was a quick game, and it was enjoyable. And as far as our success, I think we did 130,000 damage. I think we got, 1, 2 kills, maybe 3. We got first blood on the Gearing, which was awesome. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll catch you next time.